or illustration ever had for me was when Dr. Brown Irene was trying to explain what empathy is and differentiating it between sympathy. What empathy does is to connect. Sympathy disconnects. Empathy will help you to have feelings. I'm just trying to start by letting you know that when we're talking about empathy today, we are not talking about sympathy because they are not the same thing. If you can look at the picture that we have that is being projected, can you see that small girl wearing one big oversized shoe? Okay, I'm sure that there was a time we did in this church that we should walk in somebody else's shoe, and we'll see how difficult it was for you to wear another person's shoe and just walk. And that quote says that if you have never really known a man, until you stand in his shoes and walk around with them. Most times it's easy for us to judge, to pass comment and not to understand what somebody is going through, and then you say, what's the big deal? Empathy is so critical in 21st century if you want to sustain your organization, build a very good relationship, and sustain it. And empathy is what makes us connect so deeply that you begin to have feelings. The feeling in the sense that I understand what you are saying. One of the things that I know that we fail to realize is when somebody is going through a difficult time, we are quick to say, "More understand," but you don't, except you have actually walked in that person's experience and know what that person is going through. So when you talk about empathy talks about you caring, it talks about you nurturing, it also talks about you connecting, it talks about you communicating deeply, and it talks about understanding. And I decided to look at that nurturing and empathy. And when you look at empathy and you nurture, is permitting individual to express themselves, expressing who they are. You nurture, when you have a small child and you are nurturing that child, one of the things that psychology will tell you is that allow that child to be expressive. So in empathy, you don't just silence a particular person, you want to listen to them. You don't interject, you want to listen. You want to put yourself in that circumstances for you to be able to understand what that person is going through. So I'm laying the foundation for empathy so that we know what Jesus did. You remember when the choir were singing this morning, it said, above all power, crucify. That is empathy personified, let me put it like that. Christ personified empathy by going to the cross and die for us. One of the things that you need to understand when you talk about empathy is like there are three things that you need to know about empathy, which number one is the emotive empathy, like I feel you. The cognitive empathy, like I understand what you are going through. And then the empathy that is for emotion and saying that you are not walking alone, I'm going to walk with you. And those are the exact three things that Jesus demonstrated when he talks about empathy. There's a slang right now that we say, I see you. And when you say you see someone, is you are saying, I understand what you are going through. And that's a bit of that illustration, because you know that when you know someone, when you want to demonstrate empathy, you have those three characteristics combined together. I see, I feel, I understand you cannot walk alone. I am there with you. You are not being judgmental. You are not saying you are not the only one. You know, this morning I was laughing when I was watching a video, and that person was saying, oh, I'm in a deep hole. Something is wrong with me. And the other person that is demonstrating empathy and the other person that is sympathy was saying, oh, okay, you are going to come out through it. And the other person said, can I give you a hug? I know what you are going through. So empathy is embedding yourself into that person's, walking in someone else's shoe for you to be able to feel, for you to be able to have emotion. The emotion I'm talking about is not a physical emotion that will come, but comes from the deep realization of this is real. And that's why I'm very careful when somebody is saying something is going with me. I don't normally say, oh, I think I understand. I want to be able to digest what that person is going through, and for me to bring out something from within me that can actually relate with what that person is going through. So Jesus Christ personified profoundly empathy when it comes to his ministry. You find that in the book of Matthew, chapter 9, 36 says that when he saw them, we have read it this morning, he was moved with compassion. That's empathy. Moved with compassion. Something must shift in you for you to be able to relate. And he said that Jesus, an empathetic, transforming leader. What did he do? If you look at that, you see that understanding and compassionate. John, we have different Bible verses in that. You remember that woman that was issue of blood? When he came to Jesus and he touched the hem of his garments, Jesus said, something has happened to me. But he had this feeling within him. It wasn't judgmental. It wasn't saying, bring her to me, this is what he has done. He was able to relate with her situation and have compassion on her and said, you can go. That is understanding. Showing understanding in situation and for you to be able to show compassion. And another one is listening and connecting. What Jesus did, can you remember that woman at the well when she came to fetch water? And Jesus was talking to her. And when Jesus was talking to her, Jesus paid attention to everything she had to say. And he connected with her. And the question is, where is your husband? And because Jesus connected, she was able to divulge everything that has ever, wrong with her. And in the process, she found healing. Leading by example. Jesus will not say, go and do what I cannot do. He will always lead you and show you an example of what he's expecting us to do. Remember Paul. Paul says, be ye an imitator of me, like an imitator of Christ. That is leading by example. And Jesus taught us most of that thing that was healing and comforting. We have a lot of example in the Bible that Jesus did when he did that. So I like this song. This song says, if I can help someone, that is empathy. If I can help someone as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. So empathy says, touch somebody as you go. And then what Jesus is expecting us to do as a follower, Jesus is saying that develop and show empathy. I'm sure that when we are doing discussion, we are going to have a lot of that. He said, lead by example. Jesus says, create a culture of inclusion. Exactly, Jesus did that. There was no segregation. Everybody he related with. And he said, listening actively. Most of us, we talk, we just hear, we don't listen. He said, inspired through vision and value. And Jesus did that exactly. Provide support and encouragement. Serve others selflessly. What can we learn? We have leaders that have demonstrated this. This caught my attention when I was going through it. Liz looks at it. Smash is a digital organization. She first of all experienced it and she began to champion empathy. She went through stress. The stressor, disconnected her from her work, and her bosses recognized it and they were able to help her. Father Francis is somebody that is filled with empathy. He served the poor during his life. Another one that I love so much is Patricia Moore. And her contribution led to transformation in inclusive design. I highlighted the importance of understanding diverse user experience. And most people that are in consulting today, they will tell you that if you want to connect with your customer, if you want to connect with your workers, if you want to connect with anybody, design what is called user experience design through empathy. That is working in your customer's shoes. So call to action. The highest form of knowledge is empathy. Highest form of knowledge is empathy, because you are self-aware, you can self-manage yourself, you have social awareness, and you have relationship management skill. So if you don't have all those things, you are sympathizing, you are not empathizing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together. So, talk about how you as a leader can have empathy. As a matter of fact, if you don't have empathy, you'll be shooting yourself at the foot. On the 27th of March, a young man was at Muritala Mohammed Airport with his wife and 3 of his brothers. And he went to KFC to buy something to eat. Unfortunately, this guy was on wheelchair, and as they entered KFC, the manager came out and said, "No wheelchair is allowed here, leave."